Hello, and welcome back to our podcast, The Boss Ravioli Queens. We are Boss Lady Amy,
Nicole Ravioli,
and Jazmin the Queen.
And we are healthcare workers who decided we are going to spill all the ravioli on the ins and outs of working in healthcare.
This isn't your usual podcast. If you came here for health and beauty tips, you're gonna be disappointed because we are gonna get messy.
Every other week, we will feature a different topic that dives into the not-so-talked-about, taboo, and just plain underbelly of healthcare. We will talk about what it's like being a caregiver outside of work and all the struggles that come with it. Just trying to be normal, everyday people.
On that note, let's
get
messy.
Warning, this podcast includes profane language, crude humor, mature subjects, and possible talk of bodily fluids. This may not be suitable for listeners under the age of 18.
So, welcome back to another episode of the Boss Ravioli Queens. This is episode 3 of 3. It's our concluding episode. It is part of a really special 3-part series, and this is Jazmin the Queen's Behind the Makeup.
So Jazmin, give us a little background, please.
So, a little bit of a trigger warning. It's just mostly some issues I've dealt with, family and stuff in my life. It's going to talk a little bit about some of my depression tendencies and the things I had to do growing up with my family and with having a family member who was kind of addicted to drugs and alcohol. So that's kind of the trigger warning. I don't know if you guys want to ask any questions right away, or should I just give more background?
I think if you want to just start talking, give some background, and we'll think of some stuff.
Okay, so it didn't start all bad. I was adopted when I was a baby, and for the most part had very good life growing up until more in grade school or whatever. You start kind of noticing the issues between parents and stuff, and my dad was an over-the-road truck driver at the time, so he'd be gone for weeks at a time and then be home a week sometimes, but even when he was home, he wasn't always home.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then that's when, around the time where you start noticing the issues that my mom may be having with some drugs and alcohol. I'm sure she had a lot to deal with too, but as a kid, it's kind of hard to see, not really have a huge relationship all the time with your dad, and then see your mom go through all of this stuff, and then in the long run you end up getting kind of treated like crap because she just wants to do the drugs and alcohol or whatever. So
Right. Well, as a kid, you don't think about what your parents are going through. You're only feeling how they made you feel.
Exactly. Exactly. So there was a lot of times that my mom would be so messed up that I would have to pick her up off the floor, or I would get calls from the police station, or I'd get calls from the hospital about her either being admitted or having issues with something, or she would have gotten arrested or something, or she'd turn up somewhere. And my dad wasn't always there. He tried to do his best, but obviously he was providing for the family, so a lot of times my grandparents would come and get me while he's gone too.
Well, and I'm sure it was really hard for your dad too, because it's I spend all this time on the road, and then
Right.
I come home and my lady is
Right.
passed out.
And I think that's really when stuff got bad, because I don't think their relationship was initially bad or anything. I think it's just, it got to the point where I feel he was so fed up with everything too that he just checked out of the whole situation.
Right.
And then that left me to feel oh, now it's basically my responsibility to try to take care of everything kind of thing with her. Because even when he was home, he would be in his garage working on different stuff or whatever, because he would flip cars and stuff, and then resell stuff and or whatever. But then that would leave me to deal with her if she's whatever, you know. So. Um,
So how does your background affect your, like, work?
So, I think because of that background of dealing with stuff like that, that really just did set me on a caregiving path for sure. Because it's like, I couldn't imagine, like, anybody else, like, going through certain stuff and not getting the help they need for it. So, I mean, I know it wasn't, like, initially, like, me doing, like, the drugs or anything, but still, like, having, like, even relating to, like, somebody who may have went through that with either their parents or maybe, like, the person I'm taking care of was
That
a
person.
drug
Yeah.
addict once upon a time or whatever, and maybe their family went through it, you know? So,
So how do you deal with that? Like, if you have a resident who has, like, a pretty hefty background in drugs or alcohol use, like, what's your thought process?
usually I do take my time with it because obviously when you do drugs and alcohol or whatever that much, it does take a toll on like a lot of your mental and cognitive abilities too.
Right.
So I definitely approach it with no judgment because I do believe that being addicted to drugs and alcohol, it is addiction. It's a disease.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a lot of people don't look at it like that, but I mean, it's kind of like it's almost like a personality trait too. Like you either have like that addictive personality or you don't. Like it's when
Right.
you like find something that just makes you feel a certain way or whatever and you keep doing it. I mean, it doesn't even have to be drugs, to be honest. It can
It
be
can be anything.
it can be anything. It could be sex. It could be food. It could be
Shopping.
shopping.
Oh, shopping addictions.
Yeah,
Those are
like-
bad.
So it's not just like drugs and alcohol is just usually the worst one because it causes so much trouble in your loved ones' lives and your life.
Well, and I think it's so widely misunderstood that people get addicted to, like, the item is like the item calls to them or something, and like you were saying, it depends on your brain chemistry and if you have an addictive personality or not.
Mm.
Like, if you do, then you're more susceptible to getting addicted to something, and if you don't, you're probably able to pick up a drug and try it once and be like,
Not for me.
yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of times that it's been hard because after my parents divorced or whatever, I did stay with my mom just because, mostly because like my relationship with my dad wasn't great because growing up and basically coming out as gay, which I really didn't do until like in high school. Like it was the kind of thing where like friends and stuff knew, but like I just didn't really talk about it with my parents because they just were basically against it. And after they split up, I lived with my mom, and there would be times that she would just get super drunk, and she came into my room one time and threatened to like beat me up just because she was mad, and then she threatened to like beat herself and call the cops on me saying that I beat her. Yeah.
Why? For what purpose?
Right.
She would expect a lot out of me a lot of times while I was going to high school because she would get treatment and I used to do get up early in the morning to take her to her treatment and then come back and drive her back and then go to school after that. and then I would go to work afterwards, after school. So
really you had like 4 jobs,
yeah.
even though
Yeah,
one of
so I
them
was
paid.
basically like, I mean, it wasn't like all the time. I mean, when she was good, but like, it felt like I was taking care of a lot more than I needed to at that age. I should have been able to focus on school mostly, and I shouldn't have had to have basically like working constantly.
So, did your mom go through like a lot of periods where she was like sober for quite some time?
Yeah, she would do that a lot, where she would not have the issues with it. She would be sober for a while, and then, you kind of like have that feeling where it's like, oh, things will get better, but then there's like the relapses kind of thing, or so. I mean, I still care about my mom. It's just sometimes it's hard to like when she says stuff now, when she says things or like getting better or things will change, it's hard to believe her.
Yeah.
It got kind of to the point where it's like, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, is that you can apologize or say things are going to change as much as you want, but eventually people are going to need to see actions. They're not going to want to hear your apologies, your sorries, your excuses, whatever. It's based off of actions.
Yeah.
Actions say everything.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Like, at this point, I don't even want somebody to apologize to me anymore. I just, like, change your behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Get better.
Right.
Do better. So, touching on like your sexuality and things, I can imagine that it's kind of hard dealing with like some of the elderly population.
Oh, for sure.
Like, how do you really deal with that when you're at work? Because right now you're pretty much just dealing with the elderly population.
Right. A lot of times I don't even really mention it. I just kind of like, I let them have their assumptions kind of thing, or their opinions or whatever, and sometimes I just ignore it, because I'm like, they just don't get it, which is fine. They don't understand. It's not something they dealt with really in their generation as much. Like, it was around, but it wasn't as abundant as it is now.
Oh yeah, it's always been around.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that also, like, you kind of got the double whammy because you're also mixed.
Yeah.
So, like, I can only imagine. Well, I saw it with one of the residents that you and I both used to care for. How she would treat you.
Oh yeah.
Versus other people, and it was like a night and day difference. And I was like, because why? Because why? Like, he's literally here taking care of you, and you're degrading him every chance you get.
Yeah, that wasn't fun. And I've had a lot of patients or residents like ask where I'm from and stuff, which is like usually a normal question. I'm like, okay, I get it, like you're just curious. And like a lot of times I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm from this town or whatever. But like then it got to the point where it's like they assumed I'm foreign. Like I'm not even from the US or whatever, and I'm like, no, I was born here.
That's one of those situations where I'd be like, do you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? Like, do I sound like I'm foreign?
Right, like nothing about you indicates you're not from the US.
Right.
Like you sound like you don't have a foreign accent. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, for my sexuality, I usually just don't talk about it too much with anybody when I'm at work. I just try to like let them like have their assumptions or opinions or whatever, and I just take care of them. Some of them usually don't care, but sometimes they'll make snide comments or remarks or whatever, and I just kind of brush it off, which kind of sucks that has to happen, but
Right.
That's disgusting.
It is.
It's so gross.
Yeah.
And like, I know that they grew up in like a different time than we're in now, but it wasn't okay then either.
Right, and still, it's like, I don't know why you'd want to make those kind of comments anyway to somebody who is literally trying to help you with what you need.
Right.
So.
Like, that doesn't... The math ain't mathin'.
Because
That's
the
not
math
math.
doesn't math. Oh, gosh. So, like, going back to your mom and kind of, like, how you became a caregiver, because you literally were made to care for her at such, like, a young age. So I guess kind of backtracking to what Amy had said earlier, like, how do you really deal with that when you have a client who has, like, dementia due to alcoholism? Like, how do you deal with that?
Honestly, it is kind of like a trigger sometimes, because like it does make me think of like the stuff that I have to go through, but at the same time it's like I feel for them, because I do understand like how hard it is to get out of something like that. And so I just mostly try to approach it without any judgment whatsoever, because you don't know what exactly like put them on that path in the first place, and then it eventually got to where it is. But I just, take it one step at a time.
So basically you're telling us that you have empathy. I feel like we kind of almost need to explain the difference between empathy and sympathy.
I'm not a very judgy person, and like, I mean, I kind of feel for everybody. Like,
right.
I don't, like, everybody has their own issues that they're going through, and everybody has their certain stories, and
yeah. Well, something that the world in general today lacks is empathy. But just touching on sympathy versus empathy. Sympathy is, oh, I'm so sorry for whatever happened to you. Like, I feel bad for you. Empathy is taking their situation and trying to put yourself in their shoes. Like, oh, well, what if this was me? Like trying to really understand what a person is going through versus, oh, well, I'm sorry that happened to you, but it didn't happen to me, so whatever.
Right. So I have a two-part question for you.
Sure.
So, first part of the question, do you feel at some point your mom is going to get dementia based off of all of the things that she's done over the years? And if you do think that's the case, how do you plan on moving forward? Like, are you going to be there? Are you going to completely remove yourself?
Honestly, I feel like she probably might. I mean, she's kind of forgetful and stuff now as it is. And, currently, I mean, I kind of, but don't talk to my mom at the same time, just because of, like, I was actually doing some, I was doing like an in-home care thing for her at the time, and I would help her out with like things here and there that she needed. But it got to a point where it was like more stressful on me, and she would like basically take advantage and want me to do all these things, but then would continue to treat me like garbage.
So you keep it very surface level with her.
Yes. So it's like I'll get messages from her here and there, or I'll like see her very rarely right now. I used to see her like a lot, and I would like see her almost every day and like do something with her, but it just got too hard for me that it was so centered around everything she needed all the time or whatever. It didn't leave enough room for me to manage or even live my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of remember when you were going through all that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And especially with all the stuff you had going on with work at the time, because you were in management at that time. So you were You were trying to be like 5 people all at once.
Yeah, it was real rough. And honestly, if she does develop it and stuff, I honestly think she could go now, but I want her to go to like maybe some sort of home just so she does have the care she needs. I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be like anything big. I'd rather have be like something simple, like almost an apartment, and she has somebody
Like to
there.
check on her.
Yeah, somebody there like all the time to
Like home
if
care
she
kinda
does
thing.
need some. Yeah, so it's like she has her private space with just like
Caregiver.
us staff
Yeah.
or whatever that's always there just in case she does need something or whatever, or at least part of the day, you know, like from I don't know, like 8 in the morning to like 10 or something, you know,
Right.
something like that.
Would you ever consider being her guardian?
Honestly, yes, I probably would because I'm already her POA, and
Can we explain
honestly,
what a POA is?
we haven't
We did explain it.
kind of. So it's basically her power of attorney. So like if she went to the hospital for some reason and couldn't make any decisions, then that would kick in for me, and I would have to make the hard decisions for her healthcare.
The guardian is very similar, but it doesn't go through. That decision is not determined by a doctor. When you're someone's guardian, that decision is determined by a judge through the court.
Yep.
So.
And also, there's POAs for financial and medical.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
There's 2 separate
There's
sets.
power of financial, which is POF, and then there's power of healthcare, which is POH, and then there's power of attorney, which is kind of a little bit, it's like a mixed bag. You get to make some decisions about both. And then guardians have the ultimate say. Guardians basically, the decisions that they make, there's no limitations on that. Basically, they get to make all of the decisions on that person's well-being.
So yeah, going back to that, yeah, I'd probably most likely be her guardian because I mean her family loves her and everything, but a lot of times they just don't want to deal with a lot of the stuff that she went through and like dealt with, and it became an issue for like kind of everybody, and I just ended up being the one stuck dealing with it for like the longest time.
Are they aware of all the things that she put you through?
I don't think they're aware of like every single situation. I don't think they all know how much it actually was for me, but they're definitely aware of some of it. Like, yeah, they're definitely aware of like some of like not only like emotional trauma or whatever, but like it got to the point where financial stuff became an issue because I kept trying to afford to like move her here or there.
Yeah.
Or find a better way to do something for her. So it just kind of put me in a bad situation in my life then.
Is she even aware of like all the things that she's done to you?
I don't think she completely is. I think she realizes like that she's put me through stuff, but I don't think she thinks it's as bad as it really was.
Right,
For
like
me.
she kind of minimizes it.
So how did you deal with that, like going from home where you were taking care of her to going to work where you were taking care of other people? Because there was no time to take care of you. Like what was your thought process on that?
Honestly, my thought process mostly was like, I work all the time.
Yeah.
I just gotta keep working. I just didn't think of taking time for myself.
Was work like an escape?
Almost, yeah. it did feel like an escape, especially when obviously I was underage and still living with her. Work or friends or wherever was always an escape. It was my way of just not being around her for the most part.
So, do you still feel like you're under her thumb, kind of?
Not as much anymore now that I kind of took the time to try to get that separation, more or less. It makes me feel a little bit better and a little bit like I have more control over my life.
Right, right. Absolutely.
Make me fuck off right now.
Stop making bubble noises.
I'm trying so hard to be quiet, and Amy just starts smiling, and here I am with a mouthful of freaking water, trying not to spit it everywhere.
Jasmine's telling this beautiful story, and we're fucking terrible.
I didn't try to be
Awful. Fired.
No, for real though.
Fired.
Like, I have a lot of respect for you. You know, as much as you did for your mom when you were in that management spot, like, I felt for you. Because I was also in, like, a partial caregiver role as well with taking care of my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was kind of nice that I could have somebody to relate to.
Right.
But also, like, I really felt for you. Because it's a lot.
It
It is a lot.
It is. Well, and I feel like I kind of relate in the same way because you still feel like obligated to her,
Mm-hmm.
even though she's done, like, I wouldn't say nothing but hurt you, but
that's a
lot
majority.
to hurt you. Majority to hurt you, and you still feel like you have to help her. And I feel the same way about certain people in my life. And it's not a good feeling.
And at this point, I feel like it's like I've tried so hard that at this point I feel like it's better for her to be able to try and help herself.
Honestly, like it. Do you think of it as one of those situations where at this point she's almost more like a resident to you?
Yeah, sometimes it feels that way.
That's how I
And
kind of
then
feel too.
it makes it harder because it's your parent.
Yep.
So it's honestly sometimes can be more frustrating than actually caring for somebody else's loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think that's something that a lot of people also don't understand is that even though we're caregivers, when we're the caregiver for our own family member, it is so different. So different because, like, if you don't really have the best relationship with your parent and you're taking care of them, like, that's hard too. But in our jobs, like, there's things that we can't say or do or whatever, but when it's a family member, like, those fights can arise again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like,
For
that's a
sure.
big thing.
I've had definitely my fair share of screaming matches with my mom.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, and
Well,
like
and,
that's something that we can't do.
Right, and
at our
everything,
jobs.
it comes back out, like, it feels like it's fresh all over again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it for me, it's gotten to the point, it's like, okay, do your thing, just, yeah, like, you know, those people in my life, like, they're residents to me. So whatever, do your thing, go ahead, say what you're gonna say. Like, and it's sad that your family basically feels like they've become part of the job.
Right.
Yeah. I guess for me, like, with taking care of my dad and stuff with my mom, we didn't have a very, like, strained relationship in my adult life, but in my teenagedom, definitely wasn't great. So sometimes I kind of wonder if that's going to come back up as his mental capacity decreases. But
Very well could.
I think, I don't know, I think we could have a really rough time with my dad ahead, unfortunately.
It's sad.
It is. It's okay. And I'm sorry for
This
you
is
too.
your episode. Don't apologize.
I know, but that was still sad. Like, because I know what's going on with her.
Yeah.
Same. Same.
And again, this is why I love you both. Like, God damn it.
We're privy to confidential information.
Well, not that part. That's not why I love you.
Well, that's...
Because you guys are understanding. And
Well-
we root for each other.
Sure do. Oh, God.
Well, that's a little snippet of my life and how things started and went for me. Unless you guys have any other questions, I mean...
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure we covered quite enough in this one.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna need to take a little break skidoo after this one.
A little
And
breaky break.
And honestly, like, talking about, like, issues that you may have went through with family members and stuff is honestly the best way to get through it. Because sometimes if you try to just bottle it all inside, it just
You're
eats
gonna
away at
explode eventually, and it's probably gonna be unintentional on the wrong person.
you. Yeah.
I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again, like, find yourself like-minded individuals, especially if you can become friends with your coworkers. Try to, because they're there for the same reasons, most likely, and they're gonna be more understanding than Joe Schmo down the street.
No.
Well, I think that's all we have for this episode. So until next time.
Wait. I'm interrupting for 2 seconds.
Oh?
We did forget to say in the other 2 episodes, and almost forgot about this one, if you guys have any questions or comments, you can always go to our Facebook page and drop them on one of our posts, and we'll do our best to answer them or get back to you. And I think eventually we might do a Q&A episode if we get enough questions on
for
there.
sure.
Yep, you can always message us on Facebook. We do have our email linked,
Yep.
so you can always email us.
Check out the link tree.
Check it out.
Okay, now we can go.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been the Boss Ravioli Queens podcast with your hosts, Boss Lady Amy,
Nicole Ravioli.
And Jazmin the Queen.
Thank you so much for spilling your ravioli with us.
Don't worry, we'll serve you more next time.
Until next time, go wash your ass.